Welcome to The Business Strategist, the show for CEOs and founders ready to scale fast, lead smarter, and build a business that doesn't rely on them. I'm Adam Strong, award-winning strategist, former elite athlete, international speaker, and 3 times best-selling author. After 3 decades in business, I know exactly what it takes to grow, scale, and exit with impact. Each week, I dive into real conversations with industry experts, bold entrepreneurs, and clients navigating the uphill struggles of business, giving you the tools and the strategies to create more profit, more freedom, and more impact. Let's get into it. Hey guys, Adam Strong here, host of The Business Strategist. First of all, I wanted to welcome some of our listeners here on the show. If you're new to the show and you're enjoying some of our episodes, please make sure that you hit that follow and subscribe button on whatever channel that you're listening to today. I want to also welcome back some of our followers and subscribers. Thank you very much for your support. We really greatly appreciate it. Now, I would really love it if I could have some more feedback from you guys. So if you could leave either a 1 or a 5-star review over on Apple or Spotify, I would love to hear from you guys, because without the show, we don't know how to improve, right? So do me a favor, go over there and head over and leave a review for me. Or alternatively, feel free to head over to YouTube, over onto the channel, and feel free to leave a comment on our YouTube channel. Anyway, hope you're rocking and rolling. Enjoy today's episode. Cheers now. What if the very habits that made you successful as a founder are now the ones that hold you back from scaling and exiting? Now, on today's podcast, we have the amazing John Spence. Now, back 4 years ago, I had the opportunity to sit down with John and go through a very simple framework around simplicity, making complexity and making it super simple. And we recorded a show called Awesomely Simple. We're going to be going down a different pathway. We're going to be looking at John's experience. John's created a really interesting framework about how you guys can basically scale and exit at a much faster level. And we're also going to look at the comparison between the organizations that he works with and the small business owner. So who is John Spence? John is recognized as one of the top business leaders and leadership development experts in the world. And he was named by the American Management Association as America's top 50 leaders to watch, along with the likes of Larry Page from Google and Jeff Bezos of Amazon. Age 26, John was named the CEO of the Rockefeller Foundation and was basically overlooking projects in over 20 different countries. Now, interestingly enough, John is an author. He's also been a lecturer and at different universities from MIT through to Stanford and Cornell, but also has worked with from the Fortune 10 companies or Fortune 100 companies, and also is a strategic advisor for startups and businesses and organizations alike. Now, I know John for probably the best part of 4 or 5 years, really down to earth, extremely knowledgeable. And listen, I am so looking forward to today's conversations. I've already said to John, I've already prepared John, by the way, offline, that hopefully we're going to go down this pathway. And I'm going to challenge John more than anything else, which he's excited about and I'm excited about, which is good. So, John, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, Adam. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, really good to see you. How's life, by the way?
Good. I've been on the road quite a bit, bouncing around the country, working with different size companies, having a blast. The weather here in America is getting nice in spring, so enjoying.
Because I mean, listen, you haven't done that many podcasts over the last couple of years. I mean, you've gone back into the speaking game a lot more, haven't you?
Yeah, I do. My business is sort of in thirds. A third of it is major keynote speaking at big conferences. About a third is corporate training, and then about a third is executive coaching. And corporate training could be, I just did a executive team of a small company yesterday, only 5 people. So from that to, I gave a speech in Vegas 2 weeks ago to about 4,000 people.
Wow, that's really diverse, isn't it?
4,000.
It's like kind of running a mini mastermind to like this massive lecture. You know what I mean?
It was, yeah.
What do you love about the most in regards to the work that you do?
The thing that's most exciting to me is to work with small to medium-sized businesses, because I know that the ideas there can have a real impact on the future of the organization. I mean, if I work for Apple or Google or Amazon, I can light myself on fire and do backflips. And it's not going to move the ship that much. But if I'm working with a company with 100 employees, or like the one yesterday, 26 employees, if we can see a shift in leadership or strategy, it has the ability to, and my biggest driver is my mission is make businesses and people more successful. But the reason I love to help companies is I want them to be able to take care of their employees. I want them to be as profitable and successful as possible. So obviously the owner or the CEO does well, but I want the company to do well so that the families and the community that depend on them are well taken care of.
Love that. And that's that's what I love about you, is that you've got this kind of mission, breathe and talk about it daily, even on your social media feeds, through the podcasts that you do and the books that you read. So, kudos to you, my friend. Well, listen, let's jump straight in, because I'm looking forward to today. You've worked with the Fortune 10, the Fortune 100 companies. You worked with the small business owner. As we said, very, very diverse. Mm-hmm. What have you found when it comes to businesses that get stuck and plateaued, when they get to a point or a growth point where they just plateau, and they might have been there for, I don't know, a number of years or whatever it might be? Have you found any common patterns or similarities between companies that plateau at startup level compared to companies that plateau at bigger organizations? Have you found any similarities in terms of patterns? You think, you know what, you're doing this wrong because you're doing it this way and you should be doing it this way, type of thing? I'd love to know more about that.
Yeah, the number one thing that I see that causes complacency. I went to years ago, a conference of bankruptcy lawyers, happy people.
Oh, wow. I bet that was a good mood.
Well, it's interesting because it was in the Cayman Islands, and it wasn't literally till I mentioned this yesterday to one in my meeting that went, oh, of course, that's where all the tax havens are. I didn't even think about that. But I'm in there with all these bankruptcy lawyers talking about why companies fail.
Yeah.
And I think there's a good pattern here that would apply. And I'm going to try to remember I asked him, what's the pattern? He said, it's the 4 I's. The first one is ignorance, not paying attention to the marketplace, not knowing what's going on, not seeing opportunities and trends and, things that are going to impact their business. Ignorance. The next one is indifference, that they don't think they need to change. They don't think they have competition. They're not worried about it. And it's kind of like complacency, ignorance, and indifference. The next one, I can't remember what the I was.
It's all the eyes, people. It's all the eyes.
I know, it's terrible. It'll come back to me later. But it's basically the inability to change.
Okay.
They're siloed. They are, we've always done it this way.
Stuck in their ways, type of thing.
I will come up with the last I in the middle of it. Everyone's now good. Is a difference. Well, the last one is inconsistency.
Okay.
Which is the other one, which is where they change so much they never get traction. But let's look at it this way. I'm not paying attention to the marketplace. I don't think I need to change. I know I need to change, but I can't get my people to change, or I change so much I never get any traction. So when I look at organizations that are struggling, it's usually they've fallen into one of those areas where they're resistant to going to the next level, whether it's complacency or fear, or the systems are stuck in the organization. And, I don't like the idea of breaking something to fix it. But if they're not doing what's best for the organization because it's what they've always done, that's where things need to be broken to be fixed.
And I guess there's so many examples, whether it be Western world companies that were around like 20, 30 years ago that are no longer around today because of what you've just highlighted, right?
Yeah. I just remember the last I, inflexibility.
There you go.
As you were saying, I'm like, so we got 4 I's.
Inflexibility.
People now are breathing easier on the podcast going,
don't worry, John is okay. He's not incompetent. Just the eyes. It just made it. I'm just
getting older. My memory's not as good as it used to be.
It's all good. Now, what's going to say? Now, as a business matures on its journey, should we say, what would you say are the strategic shifts that you find that founders often fail to make when trying to scale beyond their initial success?
Oh, that's go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say to you, because there's kind of like an extra question on how can like an entrepreneur evolve their strategy at the stage to unlock the new growth and purpose the company for, say, a successful exit? Because I mean, when we talked offline numerous times, we love talking strategy, right? We love that framework because that's what it's about. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, the thing that you just talked about not being able to go is when they don't bring in professional management. Just because you can start a company and you've got a really great idea, if you haven't run $100 million company before, there's this better than I do. You get to 10 million, it's one thing, get to 20 million, it's another, get to 50, go from 50 to 100. There are different leadership requirements. There's different operational requirements. And at some point, if you're just not just a founder, but if you're a founder and you haven't been running a big company before, you get into a zone where you don't know what you don't know. And bringing in professional management that has run a $50 million or $80 million, which allows you then, next thing is to back up and think long term.
Yeah.
What is our vision? What is our long-term strategy? How do I set this up for exit? If you're in there every day trying to put out the fires, you don't have the time to be thoughtful and reflective, which is, as the founder, that's your main idea, is how do I take this company to where it can go and have a CEO or COO that's basically doing the day-to-day operations.
Yeah, it's a good point, actually. And that's something that I believe definitely gets overlooked. And I think you made a really good point about the fact that inexperienced CEOs or founders that have not been around, but how, I guess I'm going to play devil's advocate here. How does one define what professional management looks like if we have never experienced ourselves and we don't know how to identify it?
So this is a great question. It's really hard. Bringing in, let's just say you're going to bring in a CEO and state chairman of the board or chairwoman of the board, looking for someone that has run a company as large as you want yours to become. So they understand what it's like to scale X.
Yep.
And they've been there and they know that the hurdles they're going to overcome. So I'm going to look at track record. This is really weird. Jack Welch, when he was running GE, said one of the things that his legacy is I could pick someone out of my airplane engines, and put them in credit cards, they'll be fine, or put them over locomotives, they'll be fine, because they've learned how to run a business.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to, so it would be nice if it's someone from your industry, maybe, but by the same token, if it's someone with a really positive track record that, you can verify, that's good. And then the other thing, it's got to be a really good fit. There's got to be a high level of trust. If you're going to turn your baby over to someone to hold it for you, it's got to be someone that you believe in and you're willing to listen to. I see a lot of founders that bring in, a CEO, but then still think they know better how to run the company than the person that's been doing it for 20 years and run it into the ground while the other person's actually trying to grow it for them.
It's a fascinating, I was actually thinking about writing a post about it, which is especially if you're inexperienced and you're trying to find your right-hand man, woman, whatever it is, as a replacement for you, because you mentioned about the importance of trust. That trust can, I suppose, in terms of sourcing, it can come internal, but more than likely it's going to come externally, isn't it?
Yeah.
Depending on how big a company is, potentially, but probably likely to be external. Would you say that is a real, I suppose, hindrance in a way, in terms of like finding their replacement? Because I don't know, I feel like this is a topic that is not spoken about enough. What am I looking at in terms of attributes? What is it that I need to identify in terms of what they're saying to help me to make the decision and think to myself, this is the person that's going to replace me. I feel it. I know it. What would you say that, if you were replacing yourself, John, in your business, what would you be looking for?
I would want to spend a lot of time with the person to understand their personal values.
Yeah.
What do they believe in? What drives them? What's their purpose, their individual mission? I'd want to understand, also, I call it your philosophy of business. And years ago, I was in Australia teaching a class to a bunch of entrepreneurs. And I asked them, what is your philosophy on competition? And one guy's like, crush them, dust, put that. And the other guy goes like, no, I consider my competition co-opetition. There's a guy that owned a big construction company. He said, hey, sometimes if I'm short a piece of machinery, one of my major competitors will loan it to me. And we will bid against each other, but sometimes we'll bid together on a big project. So, I'd want to understand what this person's philosophy of business is. And you and I have done this, and your listeners or viewers. It's when you sit down at lunch with someone that runs a company and they talk about how they run it and what they do and the decisions they've made. And you go, I would never do that in my company. I would never do that. Or, wow, that's a great idea. I would want to spend enough time with someone to understand, how do they think about employees? What do they think about vendors? What do they think about competition? How well do they know strategy? And so I need to get those bases covered, but I also need to like the person. I mean,
Yeah.
also, this isn't somebody you hire and you give your company to in 6 months. It's a couple year process. If you're ready to turn your company over, in my opinion, it's a 3-year process to find somebody, bring them in, let them work for you for a while, understand your business, make sure they're the right person, before you just turn it over. I see founders that just hire somebody and say, here's the company. In my opinion, that's not going to work.
Wow. I mean, that's so high risk as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I would feel really uneasy of just giving my company away. It's kind of like, I want to give it away. Like, I don't want to do it anymore. Do you know what I mean? It's like just passing the buck and expecting the results.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've seen this with people that sell their businesses and hang out for a little while. Maybe they've got a retention contract that they have to stay for a year or two.
Yeah.
That's one of the hardest transitions I've ever seen. And in my opinion, it doesn't go well most of the time because they don't want to give the baby up.
Yeah.
And they're in there constantly trying to make changes, and they go from making all the decisions and having all the power to suddenly somebody else telling them what to do. And it's a really, really hard transition for most people that sell their businesses.
I would agree. I mean, fancy, you got to really bite your lip in certain circumstances, haven't you? And you're like, I can't say anything, damn it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You can say something, just nobody going to listen to it anymore.
No, sorry, we've lost all respect for you. Anyway, it's all funny. What I was going to say, founders, I mean, they pour their passion into startups, John, right? What have you found? What are the subtle and counterintuitive mistakes you've seen that drive leaders that make inadvertently limit their company growth more than anything else? Like, let me give an example. Like, they may have a particular habit that they've done religiously that has helped them to grow their company, but further on down the line, it has now created a liability as the business expands. Am I making sense?
Yeah. And we just talked about one is when the company's small, you've got your hands in everything.
Yeah.
You're working, you're doing the financials, you're doing marketing, you're out there selling. And what happens is, in my opinion, is they stick with what they really enjoy, not necessarily what they're good at. They're like, oh, I love marketing. I've got one guy, I love marketing advertising. Like, you don't know anything about marketing and advertising. When your company was 5 people and you had 50 clients, it wasn't. Now that you're going to go to 5,000 clients, it's a whole different ballgame. Oh yeah, but I got one guy's like, we need to change the colors on the brand. Like, it's a $4 billion company now. You don't need to be going in and working on the brand colors. Let's stick with strategy and working with your highest level stakeholders. That's really at your level where you need to be. But he's always in there, I'll change this word in the ad, or I don't like that video. No.
I agree. Or don't do what Jaguar did, which is about 6 months ago, completely rebranded it and completely destroyed the brand, of course.
Well, let me jump in there and say so. I owned an advertising and marketing firm for about 10 years. And people would come to us like, we need a new logo. I'm like, why? Oh, well, we'll get more customers. No. Yeah. People don't buy from you because they like your logo. They don't go, oh, purple and yellow, gotta have that, and look at that logo. I trust that bank because the logo's so cool. It's nice to have that stuff, but I used to sell it. But I would tell people, this isn't going to make your business grow exponentially just because you have a nicer business card. It's fine, but it's not a strategy.
Makes zero sense whatsoever. I don't know who was sitting around the round table when that decision happened, but that's a different conversation altogether.
It's working. We don't need to mess with it. It's an iconic brand. Why in the world do you have to rebrand something that's so incredibly well known and respected?
That's business.
I've looked at strategy really, really, really carefully. You know that.
Yep.
And I've identified, there's lots of places where an organization can differentiate itself.
Right.
But I see a pattern of 5 major areas. Number 1 is people.
Yep.
You get the absolute best people on your team. That's difficult, if not impossible, to copy. These are my criteria. That it's got to be something that's highly valuable in the marketplace, that your target customer is happy to pay for any reasonable price.
Yep.
That is difficult, if not impossible, to copy, and that you can consistently execute with excellence. If you can get something that meets the strategy, that meets those 4 criteria, you've got something really solid. And when I look at companies, there's 5 areas usually to do it. Do you have the best people and they're loyal, which goes to number 2, great culture.
Yep.
So I've hired great people and created a super good culture where people are engaged and excited and passionate, balanced with a culture of accountability that delivers. There's got to be both sides of that. The next one is customer relationships. If I have really strong relationships with my customers, high trust, customer intimacy, know them well, that's difficult to, if not impossible, to copy. Another one we just was brand. If you've got a highly respected brand that's been around for a long time, it's well recognized, don't mess with it, because that's one of your strategic differentiators. Then the last one is data. Most organizations are sitting on a gold mine of data, and they either don't know it or they don't use it effectively. So those are the 5 things. When I'm working with a client, I'm like, okay, how do we meet these criteria, and how are you focused in these 5 areas?
Love it.
Thank you.
I love that 2 cents. Amazing. What I was going to say, in your experience in the coaching world, whether it be entrepreneurs, CEOs of big companies, whatever it might be, what have you found are the psychological blind spots that holds founders back from scaling successfully? Is it ego? What holds them back really from a successful exit?
Yep. Imposter syndrome.
Yeah. God.
As I said that.
I mean, I never believed in that really up until maybe about 2 years ago. I don't know. We'll talk about imposter syndrome, but I'll let you go ahead.
Well, I work with a lot of and I have this myself when I ran companies. It's not that I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, I used to lay awake at night worrying, like, when are the Rockefellers figure? I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just making it up every day when I get to work. I'm hoping things turn out okay. Now, I was thoughtful and, had some experience, worked hard at it, but I see a lot of folks that just don't believe in themselves. You get that, or you get the other side where they're so egotistical, narcissistic, they believe that, I've seen people try to sell tell people, I want 600 million for my company. And like, the valuation's 80 million. It's just not happening. No, I worked hard on this and that's my number. I'm like, I don't care if that's your number. That's not the number the marketplace will pay for your company. And they just get obstinate. No, I gotta have a minimum of 500 million. Like, never going to get it. So it's too, I don't think I can do it, or I'm overconfident.
I love that. It's like the 2 extremes. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've got someone that is, I'm an imposter, I'm a fraud, to someone that's completely the polar opposite to that, which is kind of interesting with regards to these. And I think this is all down to self-awareness, John. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, you just nailed it. That's probably in my coaching. And imposter syndrome, either one of those is being self-aware. That's why, and I'm not plugging myself, that's why it's good to have an executive coach or a mentor, or someone that can look you and hold up a mirror, because your employees aren't going to do it, because you could terminate them. Yeah. But having the ability to back up and say, what am I truly feeling here? Am I angry, or am I embarrassed, or am I anxious, or am I upset? And being able to identify your emotions really well, and then act accordingly. It's self-awareness and self-regulation are the 2 things. And then just trying to be aware of how you run the company, being thoughtful. It's interesting. Some of the folks I work with that aren't highly self-aware of themselves as an individual, or the way that they lead their companies, I'll tell them, you just need to take 15, 20 minutes a day at the end of the day and just reflect back on what happened. How did you treat people? What did you think? What were your feelings? And I'm not a touchy-feely guy, but it's important to look at that. And you know what they tell me? I don't have time. Like, if you don't have time to be thoughtful, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Because if you're the CEO you need to spend time every day thinking about the future, thinking about how to build the company, thinking about succession planning and all that stuff. It isn't something you just wake up one day and figure out. It's a slow process of constantly journaling, reflecting, thinking about strategy. And if you're too busy to do that, something's wrong in the way you're running your company.
When you were CEO at the age of 26, which is a very young age, very young age to be a CEO, what would you say to your 26-year-old self if you went back in time?
You can't lead everybody the same. You have to treat people individually, to their style, to their personality, to the way they like to work. It isn't just a mass of people. They're individuals that need to be led and coached and helped in an individual way. That was the biggest mistake I made, is I tried to just do things my way.
Right.
Not in a mean, like my way or the highway, but this is the way I'm comfortable. This is the way I happen to be highly visual. I would draw everything out. Okay, everybody, here's what we're doing. And I had my assistant was highly auditory. And she said, well, let's talk about it. I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. It's on the wall. Can we discuss this? No, we can't discuss it. Just look at it. I drew it out. It took me 3 hours. Then I learned that I had to lead her in a different way that I led other people. I had to sit down and chat with her for half an hour and explain things and talk it out. And she'd take notes. And it wasn't until I realized I had to change my style and flex it to the way that my folks worked to allow them to work the best that they possibly could. That was a big stumbling block for me.
It sounded like she was a kind of a good listening ear, as well as kind of / coaching / counseling in a way.
Yeah. One of the other things I realized back then is, and this is probably a good one, is I didn't realize how important emotional intelligence, EQ, is. Yeah. We've done research in our organization, and I call it the 3 quotients that it takes to be successful as a leader in the future: IQ, EQ, and AQ. IQ is not the number, it's competence. You got to be really good at what you do. So that's why EQ is your emotional intelligence. And here's what we figured out is the higher you go in an organization, the more important it is, because you go from doing the work to managing the people do the work to managing the people that manage the people. And when eventually you get up high enough, you're not doing the work anymore. All of your work is working with people.
Yeah.
And so those people skills, self-awareness, empathy, all listening skills, being curious, those become more and more important. I had like 0 EQ. I didn't care what anybody else felt, or I don't like emotion schmotion. Just give me the data. And I've realized now in my latter career that actually the people skills are by far the most important. The other stuff you can hire people to do, or it's a skill you learn. By the way, EQ is a skill too. And then the last one, so you can get better at EQ and resilience and things like that. Then the last one, AQ, is your adaptability quotient. And it's your ability to successfully navigate change. And it's my belief now that AQ is actually more important than EQ or IQ. If you're really good at what you do and you work well with people, but you can't change fast enough, you're not agile, adaptable, nimble, you will get left behind.
I've never heard of the AQ scenario. And by the way, I just want to say thank you very much for sharing your vulnerability around your lack of EQ when you were younger. So that's good.
I've worked on it hard. Really,
I bet.
It's much better.
Yeah, I mean, you've coached hundreds, if not thousands, of CEOs and founders. What do you find exceptional founders do differently from average leaders to get back on track? Any common patterns or any thoughts there?
They take accountability.
Yep.
They take accountability and say, this is my fault, or this is what I did wrong. So they're not afraid to take accountability for problems. And then they're willing to question themselves. They're willing to ask for divert input, ideas, feedback, and say, I don't have the answer here. I need some help. The ones that say this is everybody else's fault. Like I'll do like, these people are terrible. I go, who hired them? They're like, well, they're your people. You hired them. If they're terrible, you're the one who brought them in here. You can ask them to leave, but I've figured out where the root of the problem is, and it's sitting in front of me. I will often ask, and I'm really low key in coaching. I try to be really friendly with my clients and stuff, but every now and then I'll say, what did you do to cause that? Well, it wasn't me. But they're like, no. Let me ask you that question again. What did you do to cause this? We got one more try. one more try before I leave. And finally, then they'll go, well, I guess I did this, this, and this. So, okay, great. Now that we understand that, how can we work to fix that together? Who can we ask for help?
Mm. And I suppose it's about also taking ownership and responsibility, kind of taking the punch on the chin and saying, yep, that was me, right?
And yeah, being able to say that in front of all your employees.
Yeah.
Sam, go, this was my mistake. I had the wrong decision. I took the wrong decision and I wasn't thoughtful enough about it. And I hurried too fast. I should have taken a little bit longer. And I'm sorry. And I'll try to be more thoughtful and prudent and ask for your feedback and listen to it in the future. That's where you build trust.
Yeah.
Is I did a lot of great stuff, but I'm also happy to admit and ask for help when I don't know what I'm doing or I did something wrong.
Going back to your own personal experience, but also with clients that you work with, could you share maybe an underappreciated mindset or practice that keeps entrepreneurs, get them through those frustrating plateaus that's holding them back? But you know that if they did this particular practice or they conquered this particular mindset shift, they would be able to carry on with what they were doing normally. Anything that springs to mind?
Yeah. Having a more positive attitude, what I would call a growth mindset. The belief that I can learn what I need to learn and I can surround myself with people that can help me and things will get better. We can make things better. I with one of the clients I work with yesterday, we were talking about personal core values and his philosophy of business. He's one of the senior managers. Everything was negative. Yeah. His number one frustration is when I know I'm right and people won't listen to me. It's like,
Are you kidding me? Oh my God, Jesus Christ.
The CEO looked at me and she was having a big problem with him. I mean, I'll give you an example. He's like, I don't like people telling me what to do and I don't want to work for women. Well, all three other senior leaders in the company are women.
Oof.
And you're saying, I hate it when people won't listen to me when I know I'm right. That mindset's he's not going to work there much longer.
I was going to say.
You know, I think he realized it when he was saying these things. He's kind of looking around the table and looking at me and I'm going, that's an interesting position to take. And, you know, I tried to share with him something that I learned in my 30s, which was a big epiphany for me. Is I was a consultant then. I'd left the foundation.
Okay, yeah.
And I used to try to stand toe to toe with CEOs and prove that I was right. And I'm talking middle-sized companies up to Fortune 100. And then one day I woke up and realized I'm not right. I have an opinion. It's a well-researched, thoughtful opinion based on my experience, but rarely is there only one way to do something. And when I gave up trying to be right and said, let's get to the best answer we can together, everything changed. I say I'm bulletproof and invisible. Someone yesterday in my meeting said, I don't think your framework is right here. It's missing something. And I went down and went, you're right. That isn't on there and it should be there. Yep. I got to go home and do more research. I appreciate that. In the past, I would have said, no, this is based on more than 10,000, surveys, blah, 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 blah. Now I'm like, I was wrong. I appreciate that.
I think that's a really refreshing, I suppose, answer in a nutshell. When you mentioned in your 30s and also this chap that was sitting around the table and then everyone's looking at each other, how do you think that kind of made him feel at the time?
Well, if he was self-aware enough, he would have realized, or he might realize that he's in the wrong place, that his personal values and his frustration, the company I was working with yesterday, the senior team's very dysfunctional, super nice people, but really dysfunctional. So I ran them through a class I normally don't run a senior team through. I did some exercises. What's your personal core values? What's your personal definition of success in your life? What is your purpose in life? Which, by the way, for tens of thousands of people that have been through this class, the purpose is always the same for every single human I've ever worked with, which is to serve other people and help other people. I've never had anybody say that their purpose was other than helping other people. And then we talked about what frustrates you. And as each person was explaining their personal values, their philosophy of business, what frustrates them, it became pretty obvious that some of them weren't happy about where they were, that it wasn't aligned with their personal purpose. It wasn't aligned with their core values. Like this gentleman, I think he realized pretty quick, the thing that frustrates me the most in my life is something I go to every day. In most organizations, I don't have to deal with that. I deal with really good companies that want to get better, and I will leave most meetings like, this rocked. These
Yeah.
people are brilliant. This is a joy. Yesterday was one, which only happens rarely, is I don't think this company is going, I don't think this leadership team trusts each other. I don't think they're going to trust each other. And we could work on it real hard, or they could just, some of them can realize you're just not in the right place.
Yeah. I mean, what's the antidote to that though? Would it just be that people just go off on their own ways and find different ventures? Or
I think at this particular one or two of the senior leaders need to leave.
yeah,
One is super burned out and she's right near retirement, and even said in the meeting, the only reason I have this job is I want to buy a condo in the beach.
God,
Yeah, in front of one guy
Jesus,
for women, and the other person, the only reason I'm here is to buy. And I just look, and I don't hear this very often, but I looked down and said, I hope the CEO is listening carefully. I'm coaching her, and I'll coach her later today, and say, did you hear what two of your senior people said? The reason that they have their job is not to support the company. It's just to gain something personally for them that's not tied to the purpose of the organization. So let's
wow,
flip that around. In great companies, people are deeply passionate about the purpose of the company. I think that's the number one driver of culture is, what are we doing? Yes, we want to make money. You're a business, but what do we do here that's above profit? Who are we helping? What's the impact we're making? And if you can help your employees see a direct line from what they do every day to making a difference in the world, to helping people, it goes away from being a paycheck to something that they're passionate about. And I don't know, founders are super passionate about their business. It's,
yeah.
I would keep using, it's their baby. If you want to scale your company and grow it, you have to have people that are passionate about the purpose too, that we're here to do something really important. And that purpose will pull you through hard times and challenging times because you have that vision of, this is something important we're all here for.
On a personal level, I just want to quickly backtrack. On a
Sure.
personal level, when you're in that situation, when you are hearing
Yeah.
that kind of maybe alarms you, like yesterday as an example, because obviously you're not firing the shots, you're not the CEO,
No.
but how does that make you feel, number one? But number two, does it make you feel like I'm a bit out of my depth? How do you feel personally?
Okay. So this drives back, and I'll tell the story quickly, to my personal mission in my career,
Yeah,
helping business people be successful. I was called into a company that, and again, this is very rare for me, very rare,
sure.
dysfunctional management team. I gave them some feedback. I surveyed their senior management team. I gave the feedback to the CEO. He told me it's all consulting gobbledygook. He used some different words and asked me to leave. And they had about 400 employees. A couple of months later, everybody went home on Friday. They came back Monday and the doors were chained. Out of business. Didn't tell anybody, didn't tell any of the employees. And these were all high-level scientists in a small town. They weren't going to get new jobs. They were going to have to sell their house, get a new job, move to a new city, take their trailing spouse. I mean, I looked at these lives that were just totally upended because a couple of people couldn't get along.
Wow.
And I swore I'd never let that happen on my watch again. So, I mean, that's that's what gets me up in the morning. And that's why you heard me say earlier, I want companies to be super successful so they can take care of their folks. So in a thing like yesterday, it's going to be I was really, really happy
Mm.
because now they see the problem, and I didn't have to tell them. I just had to ask questions. What do you think about this? And as they listened to each other, they were realizing we're on way different wavelengths here. We have way conflicting reasons that we're here and what we're trying to do. So I left there saying the company's going to be better. All the rest of the employees will be better if a few of the people that are at the top realize this isn't where I want to be. Or the CEO realizes, as much as I might like this person or not like them, they're not going to be someone that can take us to the next level because they're not bought in.
I guess your job role really is to dissect and untangle the mess that I suppose kind of intertwined with how people act and behave in an organization as to kind of the reasons why businesses don't grow in the first place, right?
Right. Yeah. My main job is to be curious and to
Okay.
ask uncomfortable questions or point out uncomfortable things. Like yesterday when
Mm.
you said, I said, that's really fascinating. And I told the story about not learning not to be right. He dismissed it. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And I went, and he said that in front of everybody. So I'm like, okay. And I know right now that everybody else in the room understands that there's an issue there. I'm happy because maybe there's a whole bunch of other people that will keep their jobs and be able to pay their mortgages and put their kids through school because we had a conversation they wouldn't have had if I wasn't sitting in the room.
Do you ever get uncomfortable in a heated discussion? Like maybe someone has a different opinion about the way that you do stuff.
No, I love that. Awesome. Awesome. Because we're gonna have fun. We're gonna be curious.
Yeah.
You can't offend me. I'm not right.
No. I'm just, because, you are going to get stuck up people out there that think that they're better than better than you. And, I'm sure you've been in kind of uncomfortable situations where you're thinking, okay, we need to take a time out here.
Well, yes, we take a time out, but I learned something a long time ago, book I read, and it said whenever anybody is angry or ugly or nasty or prejudicial, it's one of two things. It's a cry for help or a loving response. They're either saying, I'm in so much pain in my life that I have to treat you poorly. I was at breakfast a couple of months ago and a guy came in screaming that someone on the staff had stole his cell phone. It was on the table and I know it was one of your people. And he was yelling. Everybody in the restaurant's watching. I'm thinking to myself, this has nothing to do with the phone. It has nothing to do with the phone. He is really hurt or upset or angry. And this is an opportunity for him to vent all that anger over a situation. So when somebody gets like with me, I just think to myself, we're going to be smiling in a little while. Everything's going to be fine. And this has nothing to do with me. And if they hate me, that's fine. That's their opinion. They're welcome to it. What they think about me is none of
none of your business anyway.
But I want to say, we're going to end up smiling and laughing and having fun because I'm not going to take it personally.
Yeah.
We're going to get to a place where we go, okay, we agree to disagree. Or I'll go, you make a great point there. I mean, I'm not, what's the word I want to say? Manipulative or anything. You're not
biased, are you? You're not biased. You're just kind of there to facilitate, right?
Right. Yeah. So when I see someone mad like that, I'm like, this is going to be awesome because we're going to have a good time and we're going to treat each other with respect and it's going to turn out fine.
Love it.
I know I'm weird.
No, but it's good because it's always interesting to hear about people, your experience in dealing with, because you've done so many coaching sessions. And it's just interesting what we don't really hear is what actually happens within those sessions. Yes, of course, what's said in the room stays in the room type of thing. But in terms of like situations which can give you perspective or shifts in perspective, it's always good to find out what you may have learned from the day or the session as well.
Yeah, and I want to underline that 99% of my interactions with people are all positive and they're companies that are doing well. It just so happens we're talking about a few of the dysfunctional ones, but still, that's important work to do to help people to make sure that their company grows or stays stable and they can take care of their people.
I know you've got this 5-step framework that we were talking about offline.
It's got a lot of stuff behind it, but the key ideas are pretty simplistic.
Yeah.
And I just developed this in the last couple of months. I think I sent you a few months ago, so I'm still working on it. Yeah, but if I remember correctly, the first one is purpose-driven leadership. And we've just talked about that. I think it's critical that if people believe they're doing something really, truly important, they'll be more passionate. The next one is people-centered culture. Get the best people, take great care of them. The third one is customer-centric strategy. Build your whole strategy around wowing, delighting, surprising your customer. And by the way, the only one that can tell you that is your customer. A lot of people say like Steve Jobs invented products that people didn't even know they wanted. He listened a lot and more than people know. And most of us aren't as visionary as he was. No. So customer-centric strategy, my saying is own the voice of the customer. The next one, which gets a lot of interest, is focused innovation. And that one is understand what you do really, really, really well and innovate like crazy to get better there. You're going to love this. Don't chase every, shiny red squirrel, every ball, every squirrel. I hate the word pivot. You pivot only when the market demands it. But otherwise, figure out what your core competencies are and just get better there and differentiate yourself even further. And then the last one was operational simplicity, which is remove all the friction.
Yeah.
Get rid of all the red tape and politics and, 4 levels of decision making. Be agile, adaptable, nimble, make it easy to win.
Can that framework, what we call the excellence framework, can that be applied to the small business versus a bigger business?
So here's something I've learned that's really important. A small business and a Fortune 100 company
Yeah.
basically have the same issues. It's just more zeros.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the same. I see the same pattern, whether it's a company with 100 employees or one with 100,000. It's just more complex with the bigger company, but it's still around people, culture, strategy. That
Would you say, in terms of like the framework itself, now there are 5 things that you have highlighted. If you're coaching someone and they don't have a framework or a strategy for scaling and exiting, for example, and you're using this particular framework, what would you say needs to be tackled? Is there a particular order that needs to be executed?
I'd say people is the first and most important.
Yeah.
Yeah. You, as a founder, you might be able to build the purpose a little bit later, or it will evolve and it will get bigger or change. But if you don't have the right people, everything is people. I had the great pleasure of working for a billionaire, one of the richest men in America years ago. He owned 47 car dealerships and about 20 other companies. And he was he grew up on a dairy farm, and he started his business career by selling old farm equipment off their farm. He put it out in the road in front of their farm and sell it. Well, now he, 47 car dealerships later, and I had lunch with him and I asked him, what's the most important thing you've ever learned in business? Whenever I'm around somebody like that, and he goes, John, you can kid yourself about a lot of things, but at the end of the day, it's all people, people, people. And I could not agree more with him.
And would you say that people principle, it doesn't matter if you are a team of 5 or a team of 5,000, you're still saying that people first is the right one?
In the team of 5, it's even more important.
There you go.
I can have 100 idiots if I've got 5,000 employees. If I've got 5, one person can really mess things up. So the smaller the company is, the more important people are.
That's a really good point, actually. And I think that I think with a lot of the small businesses, and this is just a general observation, is that they're so what I call transactional in the way that they are executing. So they're very focused on profits and revenue rather than people. Do you find that to be quite common?
Yeah, quite a bit, because it's easier to deal with process and spreadsheets and numbers. But here's what I teach. Every company has what I call, not every company, but most companies have what I call Bob. Bob is the guy that does the least amount of work possible. He's, I get a group of 1,000 people. I say, I want everybody in here to think about the lowest performing employee in your entire company. And it's Bob, unless there's a guy, I did one the other day and there was a guy named Bob in the room. I'm like, okay, let's change it to Eric. Is there any Erics in the room? But I say, now realize that person sets the standard of excellence for your entire company. That person comes to work every day. They act that way. They behave that way. The quality of their work is like this. They still get paid. They still get benefits. They still carry your business card. You're telling everybody else in your company, this behavior is acceptable. So once they look at that, I go, how would you like me to bring you 10 more Bobs tomorrow? And they're like, no. Why do you have one? And the smaller the company is, the bigger impact Bob has on the attitude. If you hire really good people and put them on a team with mediocre people, one of 2 things happens. They either lower their performance to the level of the rest of the team, or they get frustrated and leave.
Wow. By the way, for full disclosure, listeners, there were no Bobs harmed in this episode.
I can't wait to tell that one in a speech. That was awesome. My apologies to any Bobs out there.
Absolutely. So sorry, Bob. I thought I'd get some laughter out of you. Anyway, what I was going to say, your framework that you have created, how did you come to the conclusion? How do you know that this framework is, number one, I wouldn't say 100% bulletproof, like you said earlier, but how is it that you have condensed your life's work of leadership, because it's about 40 years or thereabouts, down to this framework? How can number one, you be so sure that if you follow this framework, they're going to get the results? Or number two, do you think that the framework is consistently evolving?
Yeah. So 2 things is, This is my first year doing this, running
Damn.
companies and being a consultant.
Wow.
And I've built my entire career off looking for patterns. Not only have I worked with thousands of companies, but if folks can see behind me, I read about 100 to 120 business books a year, and I have every year since 1989. And that doesn't make me smart. It just means I have access to more information. And the foundation of strategy or expertise in anything is pattern recognition. So I have
Mm.
spent 3 decades looking at patterns of what the best companies do. And this framework, it's not that different than the one I had. My original one was talent plus culture plus extreme customer focus multiplied by discipline execution equals business excellence. This one was compiled with all my work, but then now with the advent of ChatGPT, I loaded, ready for this, 11 million words, because the average book is about 50,000 words, 50,000 words.
It's about that right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I've got 11 million words in there of just books. Then I've got articles, I've got everything else, I've got stuff. I boil all that down and asked it to look for the pattern and ran it multiple times, and the same sort of stuff came up. Now, I will say the data is biased because it's my beliefs. So I'm not sure that the framework works. It's what I've seen work in companies for 30 years. But like someone pointed out yesterday in one of the other frameworks, I have visionary is not in your leadership framework. And I went, well, crap, it should be. That is important. I don't know why it's not there, but I said, I'm still building them. I'm confident that those 5 things the kind of what I call like in leadership, the non-negotiables.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, other stuff might change, but being honest, visionary, courageous, being a good communicator, caring about your people, especially honest. There's never going to be a time that's like, wow, if you're lying your ass off, you'll be a really good leader. Honesty will always be a non-negotiable of leadership excellence. That makes sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, definitely. I just had a thought. Now, I was wondering if you'd be up for this. Now, something that I'm going to spring upon you here. I would be honored if you'd be open to the idea of doing a coaching session now.
Oh, sure. Now, do we have enough time, or are people going to go?
We've done this actually with quite a few people that have been on. This is kind of an angle that we've been doing for the last 3 to 6 months.
Okay, great.
And I tell you what, it's been very eye-opening more than anything else. And I think that a lot of I don't know about you guys that are listening in, whether you appreciate good coaching. I really do appreciate good coaching. So I think, like you, John, we're kind of still students, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and I certainly don't know everything. Well, I like to think so, but I don't.
When I turned 58, I came up with a phrase. I now realize I know very little about almost nothing and nothing about almost everything else, which makes it fun. That means I got so much more stuff to learn.
Yeah.
So this is the part where you make me look stupid. No, I'm just kidding.
That's all
I'll do the
good.
coaching part. We'll make it through this. There was imposter syndrome jumping up right there.
Anyway, let's talk about coaching because now I've been an entrepreneur for like 30 years. And I started up my first business when I was 11. From my perspective, I feel like I could be moving much faster. But I'm not. I get frustrated, John. I don't know what, and maybe it's because I'm doing the things that I shouldn't be doing, that I'm practicing certain things. And you probably come across this working with lots of people in the past. I'm trying to identify those patterns so I can become more self-aware, number one. But number two, to be able to move at a much faster pace. I believe in the art of patience, of course. I never used to, but I do. But I also feel like I could be going much faster because, as you will be aware, speed loves success and vice versa.
So it's interesting, the dichotomy you just said, which is I have a sense of urgency. I want to move faster and faster, but I do know patience is important, but not being able to move quick is frustrating me. So
Yeah.
the first question I have is, what is the single biggest frustration you have right now about speed, about urgency? What is the one area that you're not moving fast enough in that gives you the most frustration?
I think for me is I'd like to be able to grow much faster in terms of the business. So that's what I would like to do. But I feel like it's just not happening for me. Or maybe it is happening, but maybe I'm just not giving myself enough credit.
Okay. Well, I can tell you the second one, not giving yourself enough credit, that the answer is yes already. You wouldn't be where you are today if you weren't doing something right.
That's true.
And so I will tell you, congratulations, because if you've been at it this long and you've done this well, you are doing something right. So you do get credit there.
Badge of honor. Badge of honor. Thank you.
Now, the other point, though, is growing your company fast enough. Two things. A, that's something not you don't have complete control over. So if the frustration is, I can't control this, the answer is you never will. But you can have a lot of impact and influence on it. So what do you think is the one area that if you were to push harder, not in every area, let's just take a small step here. We're not going to try to change everything, but if there was one thing you could do to grow your company, what would one small step you could take tomorrow be?
That's a good question.
That's my job.
I feel like we probably need to get better at marketing.
Marketing.
Yeah.
Okay. It's interesting in my experience that people confuse marketing a little bit with advertising. Advertising is putting your message out and trying to reach your customers. Marketing is mostly research and numbers.
I'll rephrase. I think it's attention.
Say that again.
Attention. Like attention as in like visibility, as in like traction. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
I don't understand.
So attention as in like, I suppose you could call it brand awareness, but it's the attention to encapsulate what my vision is and trying to attract the right types of clientele that would be like, okay, I get it. Yeah, I'm sold.
So here's a bit of advice, and you might have already done this, but one of the things I'd recommend is figure out who your A client is, the ones you'd really, really like to have a lot more of.
Yep.
And then do you have some of those like that now? Do you have what you would consider some really good target clients?
Absolutely.
So my recommendation, and we'll cover this the next time we chat, is go to them and ask them this question. Why specifically do you do business with me? What are the top 3 or 4 reasons? And if you talk to enough of them, a pattern will emerge. And they will all say the same 2 or 3 or 4 things. It's my belief that if these are your best clients that you want to have a lot more of, if they're all hiring you for the same couple of reasons, that's likely a good area to focus on to grow your business with more clients like that. Because if this is why they're buying, it's probably why other people would buy. Have you had that conversation with your clients?
I think some of the emerging things that come up was I'm particularly great at clarity. So clarity and direction, very similar to yourself, making things super simple, actually taking complex. And so simplicity is another one. The other thing was challenging the status quo of why they do something. I'm very good at asking specific, hard hitting, emotional questions. And number 4, from my belief, it's transformational results from where they at to where they want to go. Like the transformation is very quick. So that's kind of like the 4 things that tend to come up quite on a regular basis.
Okay. So here's my recommendation and normally if you and I were coaching, I'd say before I talk to you in 2 weeks is I'd like you to pick at least 5 of your clients and ask them that, take them to lunch, call them, do a Zoom call, but ask them that question. Why specifically do you do business with me? And then let me know what they say. And it may track perfectly, but you might learn something interesting and new. And then the other thing I'd like you to do is in those 4 areas you just described, write one way that you can improve in that area. What's something you can do, learn, get a mentor, get help, read a book. I just read a book. We had talked earlier in our session about EQ, and I know that's a weakness of mine. I just found an amazing book called Emotional Agility that really changed the way I looked at it. So maybe you could find an article, or I can help you find an article or a book in one of those areas you really want to improve, and we'll make a plan to try to get some steps in place that I can hold you accountable to, like I'm going to with you talking to your clients.
I appreciate that. It's really interesting. I'm actually listening to an audiobook right now, which you might have read. 10x is better than 2x, which is the first time that it was recommended to me on a couple of occasions. But I think what I find fascinating about it is the psychological shifts more than anything else. And I think what it is really down to is it's all psychology, really, in a nutshell. Yes, there is strategy. Yes, there is other things, but I do believe that psychology is very underestimated in the way that we do things.
I read that book too, and it's kind of what you were just talking about with your growth and your challenges and frustration.
Mm,
Is that's all a mindset. The mindset is,
mm,
well, if you could grow 2x, you should, why not think 10x or bigger? Because you're going to have to do the same work anyways.
yeah.
So I think you summarized that book very well of the importance of mindset. And it
Mm,
sounds to me, from what we just said, your mindset is torn between go faster, but I still have to be patient. And that's going to be part of your mindset shift to figure out the balance between that.
yeah. It's interesting how me and you were in this area of coaching and consulting, and we practice what we practice, and we talk about certain key topics that we're experts at. But when it comes to our own business, sometimes it's not so easy, would you say, John?
Oh yeah, of course.
And having kind of like someone to have a top-down perspective of saying, Adam, John, this is what you need to do, right? Do you ever get that?
I get that, but I also walk out of meetings going, I need to go do that myself.
Exactly.
I haven't asked my clients that question in a couple of years. Maybe I ought to go ask a couple of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of times, what is it? Cobbler has no shoes, or, Dr. Heal thyself. Sometimes I walk out of meetings where I'm coaching. I'm like, that's a pretty good idea. Maybe I ought to go find my company.
Maybe I should take a dose of my own medicine.
And it's unfair for me to tell somebody something. And I try not to tell people what to do. You just saw what my coaching style is
Mm,
here's what I've felt. Here's what I've thought. It's oftentimes I'll look at it and go, I can't give advice if I'm not following it myself.
no.
Like you'll notice that I'm not a strength conditioning coach. Although I have lost 100 pounds, I am not, I'm not going to be your dietitian. I'm not going to be the guy, or you either. Here's how to grow hair in 10 days. This is definitely not your area of expertise.
Definitely not.
This is long for me. So there's certain things I look at and go, I don't have the right, not right. It wouldn't be fair for me to try to help someone in this area when I don't have expertise here and I can't give advice. I can't give advice I feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
So yeah, when people ask me questions, I'm like, this is like finance or financial. I can't read that stuff. That I got asked once, like, how come you can't do it? I go, that's what a CFO is for. I understand it fairly well, but if someone asks me about that, I'm like, talk to somebody else. I'll introduce you because I'm going to mess that one up pretty big.
Love that. That was a great, in fact, even though it was a brief coaching session, listen, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Listeners, I hope that you have enjoyed that coaching. Listen, if you imagine John, rewind what John has just done with me, go back, listen, and do it for yourself. Because I think that, again, it's all about shifts, right? Shifts in perspective and self-awareness. So tell us a little bit more about what you're working on, John. I mean, you've been working in this area for 31 years, long, long time. You made it a life ambition to help companies thrive. What does the legacy look like for you? Number two, what impact are you hoping to make when you're no longer around?
So the legacy is people having enough savings, to take care of their family, their loved ones, put their kids through college, take care of an ailing parent, and to enjoy the work they do to get there. That's the legacy. I hope that years ago I was teaching at a college and one of the kids was really, really struggling. And every year I get a Christmas card with a picture with him and his wife and his 3 kids. And he keeps saying, hey, if it hadn't been some of the information you taught me that day, this never would have happened. That's
Beautiful.
the legacy I want to leave. And then I think I mentioned earlier, I'm 61. So I believe I'm sort of in the tail end of my career. And the stake I'm putting in the ground for the rest of my career is that you should lead with love.
Love
And
that.
the definition there though is moral love. And moral love is honesty, integrity, treating people with respect and dignity, genuinely caring about the people you lead. That doesn't mean you need to be their best friend or their therapist, but to really care about the people and their success and their happiness. I mean, I'll be on a call with my team here, our team. I always try to say not mine, our team. In about an hour, we end every one of our calls going, I love you guys. We love you too. A lot of people say that's cheesy. No, but we still have a high level of accountability.
Yeah.
So you have to love someone enough to hold them accountable. There's a difference between being polite and kind. Polite is like, oh, everything's fine. Don't worry about it. That's not kind because that person will fail. So they know I love them, but I also know that I love them enough to tell them when they're not doing well or when they're failing and help them get better. So
Yeah.
that's my big stake in the ground is leaders lead with love and not
Yeah.
afraid of the L word.
I've actually got a good friend of mine who is in the leadership realm, actually, and her big thing was all around love in the boardroom. She's dedicated years of her wisdom, dedicating a very similar philosophy. There's a lot of great research out there that, yeah, love doesn't need to be physical love. It means many different things to many different people.
Well, people want to belong. They want to feel like they're important. They want to feel like you care about them, and you should. I mean, if you don't love what you're doing, you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And if you don't love the people you're doing it with, then you're not going to be successful. And again, it doesn't mean I have to be enthralled with them, but I just have to care about them as an individual.
Yeah.
And give them
Absolutely.
flexibility and compassion and care and
Mm,
concern,
mm,
not be a doormat, still hold them accountable. We got to make our numbers, but we can make our numbers having fun and caring about each other. And it's
mm.
a lot better to do it that way than to be, as you said, a transactional.
Yeah.
Do your work, here's your paycheck, go home.
Just wrapping up today, because I know we've gone through so much information. It's been a ball, by the way. But I wanted to ask you, what is it that the listener can do for you? What are you working on right now?
The thing I'm really focused on putting out quality content on my LinkedIn and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So if you wanted, it would be connect with me on LinkedIn or sign up for my newsletter or my blog, because I believe that the information I'm giving will help everybody. I focus, very well, Adam, no fluff, no BS.
Nope.
Everything's got to be something simple, something you can apply that will have a positive difference. So the more people I can help, the happier I'll be, although I'm happy right now.
Very good. Awesome. Guys, listen, we're coming to the end now. John, I want to say thank you very much again for being on the podcast today. Really, really greatly appreciate your time today.
My pleasure, my honor. It's a lot of
Very
fun.
good.
It's always fun to spend time with you.
Likewise. And for you guys that are listening in, do me a favor, check out John's links. We'll put them all below. Connect with him over on LinkedIn. Go to his website. Check out his books. If you do reach out, feel free to mention the podcast and that you're a listener, of course, and he'll be able to put 2 and 2 together. But John is a great guy. And I really do believe that a lot of great stuff that we've been talking about today, and even over the last sort of, the last couple of months, we've had some amazing guests. In fact, all the guests that we've had on are pretty amazing. So I want to just take it on board. If you have missed any of the things that we've talked about, because we have been through very much, is to make sure that you rewind this and go back through it. Because I can guarantee you, the more times that you listen to a particular episode, you'll get new epiphanies. You'll get new aha moments. I find that all the time if I'm listening to an audiobook or if I'm listening to a podcast, you will get the same too. Don't listen to it just once, okay? That's kind of my 2 cents of today. Now, for you guys, just wrapping up, if this is the very first time that you've listened to the podcast, do me a favor. I would be honored if you could follow or subscribe to us over on Apple, YouTube, or on Spotify, Amazon Music, whichever preferred platform. Give us a 1 or a 5-star review. Be honest. I don't give a shit if you give me a 1-star review. I just love honesty, because guess what? We can't grow unless we have feedback. Anyway, from me and John, thanks so much. And hopefully we'll see you again back on the podcast. Take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.